Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York City-based jazz virtuoso and bassist Abe Pollack. We get into his new 2024 CD, Unprecedented Time, that is a set of primarily original swing era and traditional jazz songs as a response to the sense of urgency and change in the air. The project serves as a way for Abe to address the familiar refrain heard in coffee shop conversations and turn it on its head. Hailing originally from Seattle and calling New York City home since 2001, he has performed on the city's most prestigious stages. His music has also pierced popular culture, finding a place on Apple TV and gracing the Super Bowl, and an eye-opening accomplishment. We cover all of this and so much more. Enjoy.
Great to meet you. Thank you for reaching out. I'm so
you're welcome.
happy to be able to run into your virtuosic world. So before we get into your latest project, we're going on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic, and it really ravaged the artist community in a very particular way. Let's go back to 2020. How did you survive that time period, and how has it subsequently changed you now that we're out of it and you got a new project, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, well, I kind of think of that as like the great reshuffling era. A lot of people that I had worked with before 2020 left New York, changed musical direction. I think I might have grown a little bit as a musician and artist as well, and kind of refocused what I was working on. So, you talk about how out of a crisis you can get a lot of opportunity, and that really resonates with me. Of course, being in New York, there was a lot of hard times during that moment. I would just hear sirens go by every day where I lived. So there was a lot of that happening. We all lost our gigs at once. I remember one Saturday in March, I woke up to about 20 emails saying that, a gig that I had booked in the summer, a tour I had, all canceled. So that was a very devastating moment, but on the other end of it, I think I came back a lot stronger as a musician and artist. I was able to use that time being home to really focus on writing more and working on the music I want to work on, not necessarily just as a bass player working for other people's projects, but thinking about what is it that I want to do as a musician and as an artist.
So talk to me a little bit about Unprecedented Time. Talk to me about this project and what artistically went into it.
Yeah, well, this kind of came out of that moment. I was home a lot in 2020 and 2021 and started working on my writing chops. So not just playing, not just working on what could be a great bass line for this standard, for this songbook tune, or working on transcribing a bunch of solos, which I did get to work on during that lockdown period. But then I was also thinking about, all right, if I'm going to be home and I can't perform, and there's going to be other moments like this in my lifetime, maybe not necessarily because of a pandemic, but, what if I injure a hand or something, or just in the wintertime in New York, there's not as much gigging opportunities. So I kind of thought I should really step up my writing game and kind of focus on that. And I started just working on what is a song I want to hear? What are some tunes, some changes, or a musical idea that I want to hear? And so I started writing a little bit and kind of coming with that background of traditional jazz and gypsy jazz and Django Reinhardt's music, which I was playing a lot of before the pandemic. I kind of wrote with that in mind and kind of came up with some tunes and some ideas with that. So that was how this all started, out of just a need to do music at home. And the opportunities I had for myself at the time was really to write. So I started writing, and while writing, I kind of discovered that, okay, I could do these songs as a recording in the way that we were starting to work at that moment, which was, you would send a friend a track to record their part on. So everything was recorded remotely. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
So what are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, that's the backstory, but I hope that what comes across is just good time music and fun tunes and fun jazz tunes in the traditional jazz style. So that's all in the background. In the foreground, I think just fun music to listen to.
So you're originally from Seattle. What brought you to New York? Was that always a dream?
Yeah, I moved here when I was 18, so I always had my eyes on the city. There's such great talent to work with. So many great different styles of music exist at a high level here, and there's tons of weirdos and kooky people everywhere you meet. So I just love the city. I love living here. There's a lot of opportunity as a musician and as an artist, and as a interesting person, it's just fun to be around. So I've always wanted to live here, and I feel like after being here for over 20 years, I'm living out the dream.
So did you get there before 9/11 or after?
Actually, I got here the week of 9/11. So I've been through a couple of disasters in New York City at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a wild time. I was a freshman at NYU during 9/11, and classes were canceled, and it was a real all right, wait, welcome to New York, kid. Here's what's in store for you. Yeah, but that time in the early 2000s in New York and in the Village, there was such great music. Kurt Rosenwinkel and Joshua Redman were playing at Smalls a lot back then. So being 18 years old and having these jazz clubs that looked the other way if you had a fake ID was so great. I got exposed to so much cool music. John Zorn was playing in downtown New York at the time. It was like the end of the quote-unquote downtown avant-garde scene and the beginning of, I guess, where we're at now with music. I don't really know how to define this era, but someone 20 years from now can look back at it and tell us what we're in.
For sure. So take me back to where, it began for you. What were early influences? How did jazz become your destiny, your life?
Well, yeah, so I grew up listening to a lot of rock and roll and classic rock, folk music and bluegrass and that sort of thing. So I didn't really grow up listening to too much jazz. I was exposed to it in high school with our music program there. But it wasn't really until I moved out here to New York that seeing jazz live at a high level really got me into it. Fast forward until about 15 years ago or so, when I started making rounds in the traditional jazz scene. And there's a place called Mona's that has a late night jazz jam session that's all traditional jazz and 1930s, 1940s style music, pre-bop kind of stuff, swing music. And I just got hooked on that because the music is very song-focused, dance-focused. It's music for non-jazz fans, so people who just want to have a good time. And I think I really resonated to that as someone with a background in more pop rock music, that you can play these, you can play swing feel, you can play jazz harmonies, but the focus is on the listener, and the focus is on having a good time.
So what was the first live show that you saw that really blew you away?
I think I remember a lot of the live music I saw back in Seattle in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's not jazz, but I would go to this music festival called Bumbershoot every year, and there we would be exposed to all sorts of music. So we saw Beck, The Roots, Ben Harper. I'm just remembering now that I saw that and was kind of like, oh, this is cool. You can play blues for a stadium. I like this. And yes, I considered that blues back at the time. Now I think it's a little different, but so that was really big, being exposed to a lot of live music of different genres back then. I think some more recent memories of live music that really resonated with me, I went to New Orleans in 2007, I think, around New Year's Eve with some friends. And this is before I got into traditional jazz. I remember we were walking around and we went to Frenchmen Street to hear some music. And I walked into this bar packed with people dancing and going crazy for a solo musician with a harmonica and a guitar. And it was the first time I'd seen people dancing to jazz music. And it kind of clicked at that moment that you could play that feel, you could play the swing feel, and it could be music that you can have a good time to.
So talk to me a little bit about coming to New York, and obviously there's dreams of venues and stages that are historic and monumental in New York, the Mecca of jazz. What was the first stage that you had the chance to get on and play where you were like, I almost have to pinch myself. I can't believe this is happening?
You know, I think the stages change a lot. You know, there's an iconic historic place that comes and goes. I think it's who I play with that I kind of have to pinch myself for. Just last weekend, I was playing a gig. So, you know, it wasn't necessarily a concert, but I was playing a gig with a musician who's in Bruce Springsteen's band. And that's kind of one of those pinch me moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I can make music with someone who, you know, is a master. And they treat me like an equal, and we're communicating and jamming and having fun playing music together. And I think that is why I'm here, for those moments.
So you've been at this for quite a while, for decades now. I'm curious, what is it that you like the best about being a professional?
I mean, I get to wake up and do what I love every day. I think the moment that you are on stage with your friends and you're communicating and creating and people are reacting to it, you get kind of this instant feedback of knowing that you're doing the right thing, that you're making people happy, and you get that one-of-a-kind feeling of playing music with other people. So it's really the group dynamic, I think, that I really like about it, being able to get together with people I like, play music that I like, in totally different settings every day. So that's really fun. It kind of keeps me on my toes. Going back to the album, you know, at the time when I started thinking about this record, I wasn't really able to do that. I wasn't able to play with musicians that often. That's why I started writing and thinking of making these songs. So then being able to do the recording with people, with other musicians, record with them, was really special to me at the moment. You know, having people come over and collaborate on a song and record the solo really got to that moment of performance that I craved at the time.
So at the end of the day, why do you love jazz?
I think it's the communication, the spontaneity and the communication of it that I love. So even if you're doing, you know, a songbook tune with a singer and they have their way of starting and ending the song, and there's still this moment of uncertainty every time you approach it. And kind of solving that puzzle every time you play, I think is great.
So let's say you have the chance to get into a time machine and go back in time and see any jazz show ever. Where are you going to go? What would you love to see?
Probably one of the Duke Ellington suites. They're so rich, so deep, and his bands were just fantastic, just the best. So I think being able to see that and hear that live would have been great. Of course, you know, maybe Lester Young on 52nd Street, that kind of thing. But I don't necessarily think that's, you know, that much different from going to Smalls in New York. You know, you're still in a moment of spontaneity, and, you know, you don't really know you're in a golden moment until it's over. So we can always look to the past and say, oh, I wish I was in this golden moment. But would we've known it was that special at the time, or it just would have been another night out with some friends? So, yeah, I mean, looking back, it would have been great to hear that music live. As a musician, we're always like rehearing these songs and trying to play it over and over again and maybe cop the solo or learn something from the recording. So in some ways, the recordings are better than going back and listening, you know, being in a time machine and hearing these cats on 52nd Street. But it could have been cool to just be in that smoky bar and listen to someone play some beautiful music.
Absolutely. So you've been on the cusp of some pretty magnanimous limelight, you know, between Apple TV and Super Bowl. Talk to me about those experiences. How did those change your career? Yeah,
so Apple TV, I was playing in a group that did a lot of klezmer music and weddings at the time. It's called the Balesmen. And the people who were making this TV show about WeWork tapped us to be the band on screen. So sometimes when you watch a movie or a TV show and you see musicians in the background, those are actual musicians. And a lot of times they're filmed in New York City. So sometimes you see people you know. And we were playing the band, the wedding band, in a fake wedding on TV. It was super fun, a nice couple of 12-hour, 20-hour days of waiting around, which is what most of that work is, waiting around and then pantomiming to some music. They did get to use one of my compositions, and that was kind of a moment, it was like an aha moment. It kind of clicked that, writing your own tune is really great. You get a lot more opportunities if you have your own music out there. So that was just kind of happenstance that they got to use my song. And it really made me motivated to just do more of that writing. So a lot of the music on this recording was also in response to that, now is the time to have my own voice and to have my own recordings. If this opportunity ever comes up again, I can present a bunch of my own work, my own body of work. But being on set was very fun. Got to really ham it up, not really worried so much about the notes, but just kind of ham it up and put those big smiles on and act like we're really bringing a big show to everybody.
So Unprecedented Time is the new album coming out on April 5, 2024. Where's the best place for people to get it? Any live shows? Anything about your world? Where can people go?
Yeah, best place to hear it, you can stream it on Spotify or Pandora. If you would like to purchase the album, you can go to Bandcamp. It happens to be released on Bandcamp Friday, so all the proceeds go directly to the artist. Find me there, Abe Pollack on Bandcamp. The album is Unprecedented Time. And let me see where I'll be performing this music. One moment. April 18th at Jazz on Main in Mount Kisco, New York.
Right on. Abe, this has been wonderful, man. Thank you so much for reaching out to the show. It's so great to catch up with you. Best of luck with the release. Do you do anything special on release day?
Well, actually, I'm playing someone else's gig on release day. I'm
cool.
going to be, I'm going to be with a band called Brad Bros and his Bad Bros at the Charm City Django Festival. And that is a public event, Gypsy Jazz Festival, so come on out to that if you happen to be in Baltimore. So we're performing that day, but up until performance time, I'm sure I'm going to be on my laptop trying to promote the hell out of this record. I'm really excited about it. I think the sounds of it are very cool, and I think I'm at a place with my music in this recording where I really felt that this is my sound. This is my voice as an artist, beyond just playing bass, but writing, thinking about arrangements, thinking about the sound of recordings.
So I want everybody real quick to pause this and try to say Brad Bros and the Bad Bros 5 times really fast. Okay?
Yeah, it's tough. I definitely make that mistake a lot, but I'm not the one on the microphone on stage,
right.
So I leave that up to Brad.
That's right. There you go. It's Brad's onus. Hey, thank you, man. Thank you for your time. Best of luck.
You're welcome.
Everything. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity to chat, man. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing, and I hope your listeners and readers dig the music. So thanks so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Seattle, Kansas City, New York City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Abe for his time, energy, and story. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.